All right. Well, since World War II, the United States government have been able to manipulate the weather. That's a fact. You can look it up. Since the 1960s, we've been able to control and even weaponize the weather. That's a fact. You can look it up.
We did it in Vietnam. Yeah.
Exactly. And in the 1970s, the United States Congress put forth a bill to regulate weather manipulators. That's right. In case you had some sort of a weather manipulation tool, the United States government wanted you to register it with the United States government and get a license for it. That's how much we were doing this in the United States. So we'll come back to that part of the story in a second. But first, when Hurricane Katrina destroyed New Orleans and the Gulf Coast in 2005, a lot of people got very rich. I don't know if you know that. That story hasn't really been covered or talked much about. Millionaires, in fact, were made as a result of it. Millionaires were made almost overnight as a result of this destruction. 80% of the land, of course, was destroyed in New Orleans at the time, and all the way up through the Mississippi into Biloxi and everything else was wiped away, most of it purchased by property developers. And black residents of New Orleans at the time weren't stupid. They knew exactly what was happening to them. Here's a nice paycheck, now leave and never come back. We'll take your land. Don't worry, get out of here. Take the town of Point Cadet, a hurricane-battered blue-collar neighborhood in East Biloxi, Mississippi. Homes were totally flattened. Casinos swooped in, bought up all of the land. Casino operators snatched up tracts of land from property owners whose homes were flattened by the hurricane on August 29th, 2005. Now this area, tourist destination, right? And nice casinos, restaurants, nice pier, all of that, nice shopping and everything. No more pesky homeowners with riverfront property. Just like Maui, Lahaina, right? Where massive wildfires took out all the homes, people that lived there for well over 100 years. A lot of generational families in those areas now just wiped away. Perfect tourist destination properties in that area. The people that own those houses, of course, are totally inconvenient. Get out of here. We need this oceanfront property for new resorts. On November 13th, 1946, pilot Curtis Talbot, working for the General Electric research laboratory, he climbed up to the top of a local peak, 14,000 feet high near Schenectady. I love that name. Near Schenectady, New York. Talbot, along with another researchers from GE, released just 3 pounds of dry ice into the clouds, high above Schenectady. And suddenly it began to swirl. Suddenly ice crystals formed, and then it started to snow. Big snow was a result of that. Obviously, this is not footage from 1946, but this is snow. And it was pretty crazy. This was the first time they had created the first man-made snowstorm just after World War II. Then experiments continued into rain and manipulation of tornadoes and hurricanes, and it came quietly. Then came Project Cirrus, which has been recently declassified. 1947, U.S. experiment along with the United States Navy, the Army, General Electric. They attempted to control hurricanes using cloud seeding. It was aimed at reducing the severity of storms. But guess what? It did the exact opposite, and efforts actually redirected a hurricane right towards Georgia. Pretty remarkable, actually. You can see look at the path of this hurricane. They started seeding the clouds after the hurricane had already gone through the southern tip of Florida, and it was heading out to sea, moving away from Florida. It literally redirected it away from Florida. Then once they started seeding the clouds, look at this. It redirected it back into Georgia, bringing devastation to Georgia. It was gone. It was out to sea. Let's bring it back using our cloud seeding. The idea was to lessen the severity of it. Of course, they did the exact opposite. After this, by the way, GE quit this, said they're done because they were worried about lawsuits, legal ramifications of this. But of course, the U.S. government continued it. The United States Army, the United States Navy continued this opportunity. In 1953, in fact, the President of the United States launched the Advisory Committee on Weather Control. They realized that controlling the weather and weaponizing the weather was more powerful than a nuclear bomb. Why? Because after a nuclear bomb, you render the ground completely useless. But using weather is just a temporary inconvenience. And you can manipulate it in any way that you want. In the Cold War, both the United States and the Soviet Union ramped up their weather manipulation efforts. Weaponizing these tools, these superpowers realized that by controlling the weather, they could destabilize entire regions without firing a single bullet. Take Operation Popeye, for example. Get your spinach out here. This was during the Vietnam War, is a prime example. Through cloud seeding, U.S. forces in Vietnam extended the monsoon season over the Ho Chi Minh Trail, creating floods that hampered enemy supply lines. This was the first real-world application of weather manipulation for warfare, the weaponization of weather. And
but I'm sure they don't do that anymore.
I'm sure they don't at all. All the supply lines were stuck on the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and the U.S. bombed the shit out of them. They were stuck. Perfect destruction. You can actually still see their craters today along the Ho Chi Minh Trail. All of the bombings that happened in that mud-soaked, in that mud-soaked incident. These programs continued in earnest, of course. The United States and Russia, then the Soviet Union, both explored weather manipulation during the Cold War. The U.S. considered cloud seeding to break up tornadoes or even to induce drought on the Soviet Union. We're gonna dry you up. No food production in the Soviet Union. The U.S. also considered melting polar ice caps to alter climate patterns against the Soviets. Fast forward to today, and we have to wonder, have these programs quietly just sort of continued? Advanced to the point where entire storms can be created or intensified at will? Take Hurricane Helene, for example. On the surface, it seems like, it's just another storm here, right? Another intense storm. But there are clear signs this could be the result of human intervention. The erratic nature of this path, the unprecedented rainfall, we're talking over 40 trillion gallons. 40 trillion gallons of water. Unprecedented amount of water that hit this area. The concentrated devastation in key areas, by the way, very specific areas. It's not just, could it be, nature just acting unpredictably? It doesn't seem so. It's possible that we are seeing modern day weather warfare. An investigative journalist over at Into Thin Air pointed out a number of radar beam anomalies. How am I saying this? Anomalies. My God, why? I have one of those moments where you can't say it. Mm-hmm. With Hurricane Helene. Watch this and watch these radar beams, which is stunning.
All right, everyone, welcome back. We are waiting the arrival of major Category 4 Hurricane Helene. This thing is an absolute monster. But take a look at this anomaly that's shooting down almost to where we're going to see landfall. It's very interesting. I'm curious to see if this thing actually lands right on top of where we think landfall is going to be. Now, there's something else kind of shooting out here underneath this layer of moisture over the southeast. It looks like it's coming from either northern Florida or a radar tower in southern Georgia. But the main one right here, look at this big beam that shoots down right to about here. That's where we're expecting landfall, give or take. Now, something even more interesting I want to show you on a more detailed chart. All right, I'll show you once here and then we'll zoom in, but take a look. It's coming from up in this area and it shoots down right to about here where we're expecting landfall. I'll move forward and you'll pretty much see it right away. There it is now. Boom, right here. Okay, so now we're going to zoom in and see exactly where this thing points to, because that is not your normal beam that you see coming from these radar. And it's definitely coming from the state of Georgia, probably underneath this mess here. It's coming this way and there's a cross of that other beam either coming from northern Florida or southern Georgia. All right, this is about as close as we're going to get. We're going to see one anomaly.
Yeah. So it's not something to discount and go down this massive rabbit hole. Want to go down this massive rabbit hole with patent applications that have been in the works with sound, using sound technology to redirect weather patterns, using cloud seeding, using these types of beams to redirect clouds. Unbelievable. It's not something to discount, especially when the people of North Carolina right now, specifically Asheville, rightly want to know why suddenly there was a massive hurricane that struck their land, bringing 40 trillion gallons of water. Water they say they've never seen before in the state's history. Back in 2001, of course, you have patent application publications for hurricane and tornado control devices. Now, this patent back in 2001 was sort of languished and then went abandoned until it was picked back up again and sold off to another individual. And you can read all of these patents. You can see the different technology, the abstract. A method is disclosed for affecting the formation and or direction of low atmospheric weather systems. Audio generators are positioned to project sound waves towards a peripheral area of a weather system. The sound waves are generated at a frequency to affect the formation of weather systems in a manner to disrupt, enhance, or direct the formation. Okay. Sure, it's all just total coincidence, though, right? But I think Eve for America sums it up nicely with her cup of coffee, questioning all of this. And this is a rabbit hole you can deeply go down if you'd like to. But the people of North Carolina who are still looking for victims today and wondering what happens to their land now that all of these towns are wiped away, will the government swoop in and hand them a check for using eminent domain? Here's all of your money. Here's some money. Get out of here, because there's large mineral deposits underneath your house. There's large swaths of useful resources that the United States government wants, or not just the United States government, but large corporations want, just like we saw in Hurricane Katrina, just like we're seeing in Maui. There are no coincidences. Here's Eve for America. I like this.
Can I tell you what I find suspicious as shit? That one of the areas affected by Hurricane Helene is the world's largest lithium deposit, and the DoD just entered into an agreement with this company right here to mine lithium for electric cars starting in 2025. Now that area is completely devastated. This was a $90 million agreement between the DoD and this company right here to get Kings Mountain, North Carolina lithium mine up and running by 2030. If that area has been inundated, is in a disaster zone, then the government can come in and do eminent domain, and they can pay you what it was worth 5 years ago rather than what it's worth right now. Imagine that your home has turned into a watery lot and the government comes to you and says, hey, I'll pay you what you paid for it. You're gonna take it and you're gonna go, right? What do you think's gonna happen right here now that they want this lithium mine up and running by 2025, 2030 at the latest? Back in 1947, we had the Florida-Georgia hurricane, or Hurricane 9, and it was the first hurricane to be targeted for weather modification. What happened was General Electric's, the US Navy, the Army, the Air Force, they poured dry ice into this hurricane using airplanes to see what would happen. Would they slow it down? Well, what happened was it slowed down a little bit, but it turned west really sharp. Let me show you. This is the path that the hurricane took in 1947. Does it look similar to you? Probably not. It's a coincidence, right? Moving on. I'm sure this is just another coincidence, but do you know who owns the most shares in that lithium mine? BlackRock and Vanguard.
Get the heck out of here. You just get the heck out.
You get the heck out of here, Eve.
I cannot.
I love Eve with her cup of coffee. Yeah,
we noticed, you were homeless. May the government offer you to continue to be? How about that?
Right.
That's our
Here's a little check.
offer.
You're
That's
homeless
the plot
now.
of Twisters. I'm sorry if I gave that away, but like
weather
this
manipulation.
Is
Yeah,
truth
exactly.
As fiction. Okay. Can't.
Hey, also too, you could say, well, what's going on? Maybe the Brown Mountain Lights there in North Carolina, not too far from Asheville. Like what's happening there? The mystery of the Brown Mountain Lights for many, many years. So who knows?
Are we?
But we're living in strange times.
Are we starting to realize that maybe BlackRock and Vanguard are not good companies?
I think we're starting to come around on that. Yeah,
is that
starting
yes,
to get
Mr. Luthor?
Like two or three more conspiracies, and I'm going to start thinking that they're probably not on the up and up.
Right. Yeah. I thought they were good guys, and then they popped up in that whole Ukraine war thing, and they just bought up the whole country of Ukraine after this war started. It's very strange. Yeah, it's very strange.
They're hiring shooters for their videos.
Right. Yeah, the people that have been involved in the assassinations of Donald Trump.
It's not uncommon in video production to hire shooters, but those are usually camera people, not gunners.
Right, not actually gunners that wind up and end up trying to shoot at President Trump. I know it's very convenient. Other people in the chat believe that maybe it has nothing to do with the minerals there. It could just be the fact that these are all Trump voting areas that are suddenly wiped out. And of course, as we reported earlier this week, the post office has suspended service and voting is beginning, of course. So 34 days until the election, any kind of early mail-in ballots, the U.S. Postal Service has stopped in over 49 different zip codes now. So no mail-in ballots, none of that in these regions as well. So boy, here we go.